ultimately falls on your officers in the field, sales officers, DSAs, and more, right? They are the ones who see a massive increase in workload. And this leg, the field or branch leg, is also where you are going to see this operational strain show significant cracks, right? Because to cope up with these heavy volumes, field and branch officers often cut corners, right? Things like missing signatures, making the customer sign a blank form saying, I'll fill it in later, not verifying the customer ID properly, making mistakes in filling the form. And honestly, it's not really their fault most of the time because it's just the nature of the sheer volumes, right? And how time consuming the paperwork process is on the ground. Festive season is also when a lot of lenders hire temporary staff in order to meet the load, right? And this gives more vulnerabilities in the process, right? This hiring of temporary staff. One, for example, your temporary staff will find it harder to follow SOPs or are more likely to miss the SOP. Two, they are most likely to commit fraud. They're more likely to commit fraud compared to full-time employees. And three, they are just not as experienced as your full-time employees. So the intense process in the loans festive season will just like they'll just be slower at it, right? So all in all, you face significant operational cracks in terms of compliance, in terms of errors, and in terms of just operational inefficiency. And this is bad because the load during festivals represents a significant chunk of retail loan volume and revenue, right? So the time of the year when you should actually be, this is at your best, is the time of the year when you're most likely to face operational cracks, right? And none of this is from any lack of effort or intent. People in branches on the field are working really hard, trying to enforce SOPs extra vigilantly. And there's tremendous effort organization wide to make this happen, right? But the cracks still persist because the root cause is not effort or intent. The root cause is ultimately the cumbersome paperwork process involved in disbursing a loan. Think about it. You can sanction the loan in your LOS digitally. You can do KYC digitally. You can disburse the loan digitally. But when it comes to paperwork, there's a massive operational and logistics process involved, right? Printing the sheets, filling up each blank, making customer sign on each spot, checking then if everything is fine, page by page, getting photocopies, handing it over to the customer, filing it somewhere in the backend, scanning and uploading it. These are small, small annoying tasks that compound the more loans you disburse, right? They add costs, time, and compliance risk with each loan transaction. So ultimately, the thesis of this webinar is simple. Switch to paperless documentation, eliminate the paper from your paperwork, and you can eliminate the operational strain that comes with the festive season. But it's not that simple, right? And we dive in, right? Fundamentally, there's a belief that, okay, I will switch to paperless documentation by adopting e-sign. And many of you probably already have e-sign in your process, right? But the misconception is that e-sign is a simple, like a simple thing. You simply plug it in and it results in the paperless future that you want. This is simply not true, right? You actually need more in your e-sign process. It cannot be a vanilla process. In actuality, your e-sign process needs to ensure compliance with RBI directives, even with the loan rush. It needs to ensure that the loan rush itself does not break the tech involved. There's no downtime. It needs to ensure that it is adopted by people in the field. They should feel it's much easier than a physical process. And it needs to, of course, ensure internal alignment so that everyone internally knows what's happening with paperwork at any given point in time, right? And so your e-sign stack actually needs a lot more than vanilla e-sign. It needs fraud prevention, it needs accessibility, it needs ease of use, it needs resilience, stability, and it needs a way for everyone in your org to be aligned, right? And that's exactly what we're going to show you in today's demo. We prepared a checklist for you to ensure your e-sign system, whether you use legality or not, whether it has features to handle the spike, right? Compliance features, accessibility features, fraud prevention features, and stability features, right? So we will share this deck with you in the next 24 hours. So let's just recap those features once more, right? If you can go to the next slide. The first is, of course, fraud prevention, preventing things like wrong Aadhaar e-sign. You can face match, you can do a user liveliness, you can do GPS capture. The last two work well. No, stick to the slide. The last two work well when you're at a branch, right? And you want to ensure systematically that your agents or your field officers can't do anything wrong, right? Systematically, you can ensure that. So that's fraud prevention, right? These are all optional features. These are things you can add, but they are things you may want to add to your e-sign flow to ensure that even when there's a rush, you ensure that there is a systematic prevention of fraud. You're not reliant on your discretion of your field officer. The next thing, of course, is blank form signing, right? If you can go to the next slide, where you should not leave it to the discretion of the field officer to actually fill in the blanks, actually directly fill it from your LOS, right? So it's an auto-filled system. So there's no scope of the customer signing something blank. That's the second built-in thing. Next slide. Third is, of course, stability. Have multiple e-sign providers built in. Don't just rely on one, because actually the festive loan spike is the exact moment you need multiple providers. Many people say, I have e-sign, and they plug into one and it's done. That won't work. So that's the third thing, stability. You can go to the next slide. And fourth is, of course, accessibility, right? Ensuring that the interface is in vernacular in all aspects, right? It complies with RBI guidelines, but it also gives comfort to the branch officer and the customer, right? Because we see that if you, even if the other three are there, if you don't have accessibility, often the branch people and customers just revert back to physical, and you're back with the same problems in physical, right? And go to the next slide. And of course, internally, your system is not just an external facing system. Paperwork is super important for people like the sales officer to know about. So internally, you need to have a notification system. A sales officer who's not doing the signing, maybe a branch ops person is doing that. They get to know when it happens with their customer. And the second one, reviewer, is when, let's say, you're not doing an automated system with an LOS, you still want someone to check. You build a digital reviewer in the digital flow so that you're still in the digital flow, but you're adding someone to actually do the checking.